I wasn't supposed to be home that night. I told my best friend, Dylan, I'd be gone all weekend. My company retreat in the woods about 2 hours outside of town. We'd been living together for over a year, ever since we both got out of long-term relationships, and decided rent in Chicago was way too ridiculous to handle alone. We were best friends since freshman year of college. And living together? It worked. No drama. No weirdness. No secrets. At least, that's what I believed. Until that Friday night. The retreat was cut short. One of the senior execs tested positive for COVID. So everything got canceled and everyone was sent home. I didn't text Dylan to tell him I was coming back early. I figured he might be asleep or out with friends. It wasn't until I stepped into our apartment at 11:32 p.m. that I realized something felt off. The lights were on. Soft music played from the Bluetooth speaker in the living room. And then I heard it, a sound I couldn't immediately place. Low, shaky breathing. I walked further in. The hallway light was dimmed. Dylan's bedroom door was slightly ajar. And then I saw him. He was sitting on the floor by his bed, shirtless, his head leaning back against the wall, eyes closed, hands gripping the edge of a photo frame in his lap. He didn't hear me come in, didn't notice me standing there, until I said quietly, "Hey, Dylan?" He startled, hard, like he'd been caught doing something illegal. *T. You scared the hell out of me. What are you doing here? They canceled the trip, I said. Didn't want to bug you. What's going on? He looked down at the photo in his lap, then flipped it over. Nothing. Just got in my head tonight. He quickly wiped his face. I hadn't even noticed the tears until that moment. Are you okay? I asked. He nodded too fast. Yeah, just tired. Long week. I should have let it go. But I knew Dylan better than I knew anyone. He didn't cry. Not like that. Not in the dark with old photos in his lap. So I stepped inside and sat beside him. Who's in the photo? He hesitated. It's from college. Us. He nodded. I took it from his hand. It was an old photo. Our dorm room years ago. Dylan had his arms slung around me. I had this dumb grin. We looked happy. You kept this? Yeah, he whispered. Didn't mean to. Just never threw it out. I glanced at him. His eyes were glassy. And something in the air between us shifted. Like I'd opened a door I didn't even know was there. And before I could say anything else, Dylan stood up abruptly. I'm going to get some air, he said, walking to the balcony. I followed him a moment later. He leaned over the railing, hands gripping the edge like he was grounding himself. You know what's funny? He said without looking at me. What? I always thought you'd be the one to move out first. I frowned. Why? You're the one who always had something going on. Guys, work, momentum. I was just the best friend. I looked at him. That word, just, it stuck in my throat. I don't think you're just anything, I said quietly. He finally looked at me, and then he said something that knocked the air from my lungs. You really never noticed, did you? Notice what? He smiled, but it wasn't happy. It was a kind of smile that covered pain, that I'd been in love with you since sophomore year. I froze. Wind howled in my ears. The entire city seemed to hush in that one instant. What? Dylan looked away. Forget it. I shouldn't have said that. No, wait. You. I was drunk when I realized it, he continued. At that Halloween party, you were dressed like Indiana Jones and flirting with that guy from your philosophy class. And I remember thinking, God, I wish he'd look at me like that. My knees felt weak. This was Dylan, my roommate, my best friend, the one I cried to when my ex left, the one I split groceries with and argued about thermostat settings with, the one I told everything to, except I'd somehow missed this. Dylan, I said, heart racing, I didn't know. Of course you didn't, he said bitterly. Why would you? You've always been the one people chase. I'm the one who waits. I stepped closer. I never knew because I was too scared to look. Because if I looked, maybe I'd see something I couldn't unsee. He turned to me fully now, eyes red, Voice low. Well, now you've seen it. And then he stepped back inside. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory I had of him. The long drives, the inside jokes, the nights we drank too much and fell asleep on the same couch, the way he always looked at me for just a second too long. And I wondered, had I missed something real? Or had I just been too scared to believe it could be? The next morning, he was gone. Left a note on the counter. Needed space. Be back later. Don't worry. But I did worry. Because for the first time in years, I realized I might have lost something before I ever really knew it was mine. To be continued in part 2. The next part will reveal Dylan's hidden past, and how one photo from their college years changes everything. Hey, before we go deeper into the story, if you're not part of our LGBTQ plus family and this kind of content isn't for you, no pressure. Please don't subscribe. But if you are one of us, or if stories like this speak to something in you, then you're exactly who we want here. Subscribe, like this video, share it with a friend. And if you've ever had a secret like Dylan's, tell us in the comments. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, we've got a huge surprise coming for this community. Now back to the story. I must have read Dylan's note a dozen times. Needed space. Be back later. Don't worry. But that's exactly what I did. Worry. Because this wasn't like him. Dylan didn't just disappear. He was the guy who texted me to confirm if we were out of eggs, who scheduled our trash day alarms, who once messaged me while I was in the same room to ask if I wanted the last slice of pizza. He didn't vanish without saying where he was going. Unless this time, he meant to. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Every sound, the ticking of the kitchen clock, the hum of the fridge, sounded loud against the silence he left behind. I looked around the living room, half expecting to find more clues. But there was just a blanket we always fought over on movie nights, and his hoodie draped across the couch. I sat down and closed my eyes, and all I saw was the night before, his face, his confession. You really never noticed, did you? I've been in love with you since sophomore year. I kept thinking back to that Halloween party. He mentioned Indiana Jones, philosophy class guy, the night that meant nothing to me and everything to him. How long had he carried it? How many nights had he stared at me from across the living room wondering if I'd ever see him the same way? I grabbed my phone and texted him. Me, where are you? Please, just let me know you're okay. No response. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Still nothing. I got up and wandered into his room. Not to snoop, just to feel closer to him. His scent was still there, cedarwood and clean laundry. The photo he'd been holding last night was on his dresser. Us in college. I picked it up, and that's when I noticed it. Something small, almost hidden behind the frame. A folded piece of paper. I hesitated before unfolding it. It wasn't addressed to anyone, but I knew immediately it was never meant for my eyes. Still, I read it. I can't do this anymore. Living with you, pretending it doesn't kill me every time you laugh at one of my stupid jokes, or fall asleep inches away on the couch, and then talk about some guy you match with the next morning. I've been a ghost in my own life, hoping maybe, just maybe, you'd look at me differently. But you never did. And that's not your fault. It's mine, for staying this long. I need to go before I break. Before I say something that ruins us. I already said it, didn't I? Sorry. I sat on his bed, frozen. The letter felt old, maybe written weeks ago, maybe longer, which meant he'd been planning to leave. Maybe not physically. But emotionally, he was halfway out the door before I ever realized it. I tried calling him. Straight to voicemail. Again and again. Nothing. That evening, I walked his favorite places. The bookstore near campus. That weird Korean fusion diner we both hated, but he loved ironically. The lakefront bench we always stopped at after our runs. But he wasn't at any of them. I stood on that bench as the sky darkened, holding my phone like it could summon him. And for the first time in years, I whispered something I never thought I'd say. I think I love you, too. I went home, drained, empty. And then, finally, at 12:41 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dylan. Hey, I'm okay. I just needed to be somewhere I could think. Can we talk tomorrow? I almost screamed from relief. The next morning, he came home. His eyes were red. He looked tired, like someone who hadn't slept. He dropped his bag by the door, gave me a soft look, and asked, "Can we sit?" We did. Living room. Same couch we'd sat on 1,000 times. Only this time, there was a canyon between us. "I'm sorry," he said first. "You don't need to apologize." "I do. I blindsided you." "No," I said. "You just gave me the truth. And I needed it." He smiled faintly. "I wasn't sure I'd come back." "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." We were quiet for a moment. Then I said, "I found a letter." His eyes widened. "I didn't mean to. It was behind the photo." He nodded, rubbing his palms on his jeans. "I wrote that months ago. Never meant for anyone to read it." "Why didn't you leave then?" "Because a part of me kept hoping." "I never meant to hurt you," I whispered. "I know. And I never saw it. But I see it now." His brow furrowed slightly. "See what?" "You," I said. "I see you, Dylan." His lip trembled. "I don't know where this goes. I admit it. But I know I don't want to lose you. I don't want to pretend anymore." "You're not just saying that because you feel bad?" "No," I said. "I'm saying it because for the first time in forever, I actually feel something that makes sense." He stared at me, unsure, like a wounded animal debating if it was safe to come closer. Then I reached out and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned forward and whispered, "Please don't break my heart." I shook my head slowly. "I won't." That night, we didn't kiss. We didn't touch. We just sat side by side on the couch, watching the city lights flicker through the window. For the first time, nothing needed to be said, because everything had already been spoken in silence. But what I didn't know then was that someone else had been watching us, listening, waiting, and they were about to pull the rug from beneath both of us. To be continued in part 3. In the next part, Dylan's secret from the past resurfaces, and a familiar face threatens to unravel everything they've just begun to rebuild. Dylan had gone to sleep on the couch again, not because we were awkward, but because neither of us knew what to do next. We'd crossed a line, but hadn't yet named what we were stepping into. I sat in my bed, phone in hand, staring at the half-written message I'd typed to him. "Come lie down in here if you want." But I didn't send it. Something about the vulnerability of that invitation made my fingers freeze. Instead, I tossed the phone aside and lay back, eyes open, listening to the soft ticking of the hallway clock and the occasional car passing outside. We were good. Tentative, sure, but good. Until the next morning, when everything cracked. I walked into the kitchen half asleep, rubbing my eyes. Dylan was already there, pouring coffee, eyes puffy from sleep. He smiled. "You look like you fought a bear in your dreams." I smirked. "Only in the last round." Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Must be nice having your best friend wrapped around your finger. Wonder what Matthew would think if he found out. I froze. Dylan noticed instantly. "What's wrong?" I stared at the message. The name at the end hit me like a punch to the chest. Matthew. Dylan's ex. His only serious ex. The one who'd left without warning over a year ago. The one Dylan never fully talked about. He glanced at my screen. His face paled. He grabbed the phone from my hand and stared at it like he'd seen a ghost. "It's him," he whispered. "Matthew. How does he even have my number?" I don't know." Dylan turned and sat down hard at the dining table. I blocked him after he left. He never reached out again. Until now. I sat beside him. Why would he suddenly start texting me? He looked up, something fragile in his eyes. Because he knows about us. I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. He always had this thing. Insecurity. Jealousy. He never liked how close we were. We were just roommates. To you, not to him. He used to tell me that if I ever had to choose between him and you, he already knew who'd win. And now he sees us trying something? Apparently. We sat in silence for a minute. Then I asked, "You think he's going to try and ruin this?" Dylan looked tired. More than tired. Wounded. "He doesn't need to ruin anything," he said. "He just has to remind me that I still carry the things he broke." The rest of the day passed in a haze. Dylan barely spoke. I tried to distract us, put on old movies, cooked lunch, made dumb jokes. But he was somewhere else. At one point, I heard him talking on the phone in his room. Not loud, but urgent. When I asked later, he shook his head and said, "Just a client." That night, another message came, this time to both of us. A group message from the same unknown number. Attached was a photo, one of Dylan and me from the college dorm days, curled up together under a blanket on a couch. His head was on my shoulder. We were both asleep, and under it, a single line. Always knew this would happen. "Where the hell is he even getting these?" I muttered, my voice shaking. Dylan didn't answer. He was staring at the screen, frozen. "I think I know," he finally said. "What?" He swallowed hard. "I think he kept my old Google account info. Back when we were together, I used it to back up photos. I never thought to change the password. So he's been sitting on this stuff for a year? Matthew, he doesn't let go. He pretends to, but he watches. Quietly, always waiting." It made my skin crawl. Not because of the photo, not because of the invasion, but because Dylan looked like he'd been transported right back into that toxic space. And I hated it. "Hey," I said gently, placing my hand over his. "We're not doing this. We're not letting him win." He shook his head. "You don't get it. He's not just trying to mess with us. He's trying to unravel me. You're not who you were back then." His eyes met mine. "No, but I remember who I was. I remember how small he made me feel. Do you feel small now?" He blinked. "No. Then that's all that matters." That night, Dylan didn't sleep on the couch. He crawled into bed beside me around 2 a.m. without saying a word. I turned over and whispered, "I'm here." And he whispered back, "Thank God." But peace was short-lived. The next morning, someone knocked on our door. 3 knocks. Not frantic, but confident. We both looked at each other. I stood up and peeked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. It was Matthew. To be continued in part 4. In the next part, Matthew confronts him face to face and reveals a truth Dylan never wanted anyone to know. I didn't open the door right away. Not because I was scared, but because I needed a second to breathe, to think, to understand why Dylan's ex was standing on our doorstep at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, like we were characters in some drama he still had control over. Behind me, Dylan stayed frozen in the hallway. He didn't ask who it was. He didn't need to. He knew. "Do you want me to handle it?" I asked him. "No." Dylan said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "I have to." I nodded and stepped back. He walked forward slowly, like every step cost him something. Then he opened the door. And there he was. Matthew. He looked different. Sharper. Hair buzzed shorter. A tan he didn't used to have. New tattoos on his forearm. But the eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. Just curious enough to make you question if he really knew what he was doing, or if he just wanted you to think he did. "Hey," Matthew said casual, like this was normal, like he hadn't been cyber-stalking us or sending threatening texts. "Why are you here?" Dylan asked, standing firm in the doorway. "No, how are you?" "No hug." Dylan didn't blink. Cut the crap. Matthew smiled faintly. "All right then. I'm here because I saw what's happening between you two. That's none of your business. Everything about you was once my business. Don't forget that." I stepped forward, my voice steady. "You lost the right to claim that when you left him with no closure." Matthew's gaze flicked to me. He looked me up and down like I was some second-hand jacket Dylan pulled off a rack. "And you," he said, "the best friend. The totally straight roommate who just happened to be there when Dylan needed to cry." "Leave," Dylan said. Matthew ignored him. "You think this is going to last?" he asked me. "You think you can handle his moods? His guilt? You weren't there for the darkest nights." "No," I said, inching closer. But I'm here now, and I'm not walking away. Of course you're not, he said dryly. Not until the novelty wears off. Dylan's hand clenched around the doorframe. I don't know what game you're playing, he said, but I'm done being your pawn. Matthew tilted his head. I'm not here to play games. I'm here to give you something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. What's that? Dylan asked, narrowing his eyes. Something I thought you should have, Matthew said, holding it out. You know, for old time's sake. I don't want it. I think you should see what's on it. He set the drive down on the porch railing. Then he looked at both of us, calm and smug. One more thing, he added before turning to leave. You can pretend the past doesn't matter, but it always comes back. Then he walked away. Not a glance back. Not a word more. Dylan closed the door slowly. Neither of us moved. For several minutes, we just stood there. The USB drive still sitting outside, like a loaded gun with no trigger guard. Finally, Dylan said, He's trying to get in my head again. He won't, I said. Not this time. But I saw it in Dylan's face. The fear, the doubt, the 1,000 unwritten memories that live in the cracks of their relationship. Do you want to see what's on it? I asked. He paused, then nodded. Together, we plugged it into my laptop. A single folder popped up. Montana, November 2019. I looked at him. He looked away. Montana? I asked gently. He nodded. We went there for our 1-year anniversary. Rented a cabin. The folder opened to 3 videos. One was titled Cabin Talk. The other, Falling Snow. And the third, Breakdown. I hovered the cursor over the last one. Don't, Dylan said quickly. I paused. He took a deep breath. I had a panic attack that night, he explained. We got into a huge fight. I thought he was going to leave me in the woods. I broke down and begged him not to go. I didn't know he recorded it. His voice cracked. He said it was just audio to help him understand me better. I never saw the video. We didn't play it. We deleted it. All of it, without watching a second. Not because we were afraid of the past, but because we were done letting it dictate the present. Later that evening, Dylan stood on the balcony with a cup of tea, staring out at the skyline. I joined him. You okay? I asked. He nodded. I feel like a part of me just got exorcised. Good, I said. Is it? He asked. Because I spent years convincing myself I wasn't broken. And now I'm realizing maybe I just hadn't healed. I turned to him. You're not broken, I said. You were hurt. That's not the same thing. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time all over again. I wish I'd fallen for you first. You did, I said quietly. You just didn't know it. He leaned in then, close enough that our foreheads touched. His eyes closed, and for the first time, our lips met. Slow, warm, careful, like opening a door that had been locked for years. When we pulled apart, he smiled. This doesn't feel like a rebound, he said. It's not. It feels like coming home. Later that night, Dylan packed up some of his old things from under the bed. Notes from his time with Matthew. Gifts he kept out of guilt. Reminders of who he used to be. We burned them in a small metal bin on the balcony, watched as they curled and blackened and turned into smoke. And in that fire, we left behind more than a past. We reclaimed the future. But we didn't know Matthew wasn't done. Not yet. To be continued in part 5. In the next part, a betrayal from someone close shakes their fragile trust, and Dylan discovers a hidden message that could change everything again. 2 days passed. Peaceful ones, mostly. No calls. No texts. No more unexpected visitors. Dylan was lighter. Not completely healed, but lighter. He started sleeping in my room regularly, though we still hadn't talked about what we were. No labels. No pressure. Just the quiet safety of being near each other. I liked it that way. Simple. Uncomplicated. Until it wasn't. That Thursday afternoon, I got a voice message from a mutual friend, Ryan. He was one of the few who knew both Dylan and me from college. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe even a year. so I was surprised to see his name flash across my screen. Voice message 114. I put my headphones in, pressed play, and froze at the very first sentence. Hey, I wasn't sure if I should send this, but I feel like you need to know. Matthew reached out to me, said some things about Dylan you might want to hear before you get in too deep. I yanked the headphones out. My heart pounded, not because I believed Matthew, but because I knew his kind. Manipulators always find a new angle when you stop reacting to the old one. Still, I couldn't ignore the rest of the message. I hit play again. He said something happened between them that Dylan never told you. Something in Montana. Something bad. He said if you really want to know who you're living with, ask Dylan about the scar on his wrist. I paused. I knew about Dylan's scar. He'd told me he broke a glass in the kitchen during finals and sliced his arm. A stupid accident. At least that's what I thought. That night, I didn't bring it up right away. We watched some indie documentary he was obsessed with, ate leftover Thai food, laughed about how bad the spring rolls were. And then, as we were getting ready for bed, I found myself watching him. His wrists, he always wore a hoodie or long sleeves, even in the heat. And I realized I'd never actually seen the scar. Not really. He climbed into bed and turned his back to me, his body curled slightly, breathing calm. But I couldn't sleep. That message kept playing on a loop in my mind. Asked him about the scar. So I did. Dylan? Yeah. That scar on your wrist. It wasn't from a broken glass, was it? He didn't answer right away. Then he exhaled slowly. I was wondering when you'd ask. I sat up. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Because it wasn't yours to carry. He turned to face me, eyes wide open in the dark. I tried to hurt myself that night in Montana. My chest tightened. It was after one of our fights. I was so low. I didn't know how else to get out of my own head. Jesus, Dylan. I didn't want to die. Not really. I just didn't want to feel like a mistake anymore. I reached out, took his hand. I wish I'd known. I could have. There's nothing you could have done, he said gently. Back then, I didn't even know how to love myself. I thought being with Matthew meant I had value. He swallowed. When he left, it didn't destroy me. You know what did? What? Realizing I let him define me for so long, I stopped being my own person. He pulled up his sleeve, and there it was, a thin, pale scar running across the inside of his wrist. He traced it with his thumb. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's part of me. And if you're going to stay, you should know all of me. I want to know all of you, I said, no matter how dark. He smiled faintly. Even if some of it comes back to haunt us. I leaned in and pressed my forehead to his. Especially then. We didn't sleep much that night. Not because of fear, because of connection. And for the first time since this began, I didn't feel like his protector or his rescuer. I felt like his partner. But the next morning, that changed again. Dylan's laptop pinged while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. The notification just popped up. A shared Google Drive link from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line. Thought you should remember what you used to be. I clicked it open. There were dozens of files. Photos. Videos. Screenshots. Some were from Dylan's past. Others were edited. One was a doctored image that made it look like he was kissing Matthew just a week ago. Something I knew wasn't possible. Another was a fake email exchange where Dylan admitted to using me for a place to live. The files were designed to hurt, to manipulate, to twist truth into something poisonous. I shut the laptop. When Dylan came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist, I didn't even know how to say it. So I didn't. Not right away. Instead, I asked, "Do you still feel like you're being followed?" He paused. "Sometimes," he admitted. Not in a literal way. More like haunted. I nodded. "Someone's trying really hard to pull you back into that version of yourself." "I won't go," he said firmly. "I won't let you," I replied. That night we made a choice. We were done playing defense. We were done waiting for the next message, the next scare tactic. We were going to confront it, together, to be continued in part 6. In the next part, Dylan and his best friend trace the source of the attack, and what they uncover leads to a shocking betrayal neither of them saw coming. We agreed to go through everything. All of it. Every message, every file, every disturbing fake screenshot that Matthew, or whoever was helping him, had sent. It was exhausting, painful, but necessary. We needed to understand how deep this went, and most of all, how he still had access, because something didn't make sense. Matthew shouldn't have been able to reach Dylan's private files. His Google account had a new password, two-factor authentication, recovery email change. Yet there it was, a full folder titled Fall 2019, uploaded just 2 days ago. Dylan sat hunched over the laptop, eyes scanning every file. This one, he said, pointing, I remember this being deleted. I wiped this whole album after we broke up. Then how the hell does he have it now? Dylan's hands clenched into fists. Someone gave it to him. I blinked. You think someone close to you gave him this stuff? Someone who had access, he said. Someone who still does. We sat in silence for a moment. Then, as if it struck us both at the same time, we said it aloud. Ryan, our mutual friend from college. The one who randomly sent me that voice message warning me about Dylan. The one I hadn't spoken to in a year. Until suddenly he showed up right when things got complicated. He'd always been friendly. Maybe too friendly. He knew all the history. He had seen Dylan with Matthew during the worst of it. And back then, Ryan used to hang out with them constantly. Part of their circle, part of their parties. But also part of their secrets. I gave him access to my drive once, Dylan whispered. Ages ago, when we were doing that group project together. I never changed the permissions. That was years ago. Yeah, Dylan muttered. But if he kept the link, he could still be in. We didn't want to believe it. But when Dylan checked the sharing settings, there was Ryan Miller, viewer access, added 2019. Still active. Still watching. I trusted him, Dylan said softly. He knew we were trying something new, I said. And instead of supporting you, he sides with your ex. I think they're working together. I froze. You think Ryan and Matthew are friends again? Maybe not friends, Dylan said, but aligned. It only takes one bitter person and one manipulator to do a lot of damage. We agreed we needed to confront him, but carefully, because if Ryan was leaking things, we didn't want to tip him off just yet. So we invited him over, said it was casual. A let's catch up vibe, offered beer, pizza, nostalgia. He agreed too quickly. Saturday, 7:42 p.m. Ryan knocked on our door, grinning like nothing was wrong. Wow, he said, stepping inside. This place hasn't changed a bit. Still smells like your cologne, Dylan said, a little too dry. I played it cool, sat across from him, watched him open the beer I handed him without hesitation. Cheers to reunions, he said. We clinked bottles. And then I got right to the point. You still have access to Dylan's old drive folder, don't you? Ryan's smile froze. What? Don't play dumb, Dylan said, walking in from a hallway with his laptop in hand. We checked the permissions. You're still in. Ryan shifted. Dude, I totally forgot. That was from, forever ago. So why are photos from that folder showing up in Matthew's inbox? I interrupted. He paused. You're accusing me of leaking stuff? You sent me a voice message warning me about Dylan. You knew exactly what Matthew wanted us to know. I was trying to warn you, Ryan snapped. I didn't want you to get caught up in something messy. Dylan scoffed. Funny, that's exactly what Matthew used to say. Every time he crossed a line. Ryan stood up, beer in hand. Look, man, I'm not the enemy here. Then who is? I asked. Matthew reached out to me, okay? Ryan said, frustrated now, said he was worried about Dylan falling back into bad patterns. He asked me to keep an eye on things. And you agreed? He hesitated. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Intentions don't matter when the damage is done, Dylan said quietly. Ryan's jaw clenched. I was trying to protect you. No, Ryan, Dylan said, voice steady. You were trying to control me. It was over in minutes. He left, defensive, indignant. No apologies. Just muttering something about us being dramatic. We locked the door behind him, changed every password, removed all permissions, and blocked him. Later that night, Dylan sat on the edge of my bed, staring out the window. 2 people, he said. 2 people I trusted gone in 1 month. You still have me. He turned and looked at me. Why haven't you run away yet? Because I ran toward you, I said. Not away. He smiled, a little broken, a little healing, then whispered, Can I ask you something honest? Always. Do you think this thus would have ever happened if Matthew hadn't come back? I thought for a second, then nodded. Eventually, I said, but it would have been slower, quieter, maybe messier. We needed a storm to realize we could survive one together. We laid down in the dark. No TV, no music, no distractions, just breath and heartbeat and truth. And I realized, for the first time in a long time, I was in love. Truly, fully, and not just with Dylan, but with the us we were building. But the past doesn't let go that easily. And just when we thought we were safe, a package arrived the next morning. No return address. Inside, a single photo of Dylan, tied up, blindfolded, shirtless, and the back read only 1 sentence. Remember who you belong to be continued in part 7. In the next part, the photo uncovers a buried trauma Dylan never spoke of, and the line between the past and present begins to collapse. The photo shook him. Dylan didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't even blink. He just went still, like his soul left the room before his body realized something had happened. I picked up the photo again, carefully, glossy, high-res, clearly printed with the intention of getting under his skin. Him, tied up, blindfolded, exposed, not in a sexual way, in a humiliating, controlled, violated way, and scrawled in permanent marker on the back. Remember who you belong to. I looked at Dylan again. His hands were shaking. His mouth parted slightly. Dylan, I said softly, what is this? He didn't answer. He stood, backed away from the kitchen table like the photo had caught fire. His voice, when it came, was hollow. I thought he deleted it. Matthew? He nodded once, eyes fixed on the floor. I begged him to delete it. I walked toward him slowly, like approaching someone near the edge of a cliff. Dylan, I whispered, I need you to tell me what this is. He sat down on the couch. Didn't speak for almost a full minute. Then he said it. It was a game at first. He rubbed his wrists, the same wrists that had once carried more than just scars. We were experimenting, he said. That's what he called it. Trust games. Tied wrists, blindfolds, light stuff at first. Nothing I wasn't okay with. I didn't interrupt. He'd say it made us more connected. That vulnerability was power. I believed him. His hands curled into fists. But then things changed. It stopped being about connection. It became control. I sat beside him, gently. And that photo, one night, I said I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want the blindfold. Didn't want the ropes. He swallowed hard. He got angry, said I owed him, that he knew I liked it. Then he tied me up anyway. Took the photo. Said it was for, yes. I cried after. My chest tightened. Dylan, I begged him to delete it. He said he did. But I knew he didn't. I just hoped he'd forget, that he'd never use it. But Matthew had waited, not to blackmail, not to threaten in any overt way, but to wound, to remind Dylan that his body, at one point, had been taken from him, even by someone he loved. That was the kind of man Matthew was. The worst kind. The kind who turns your trust into a weapon and calls it affection. Dylan stood up again, pacing. I can't breathe, he whispered. I feel like I'm back there, in that cabin, on that floor. You're not, I said firmly, standing too. You're here, with me. I don't know if I could survive this again. You don't have to survive it alone. We spent the rest of the morning planning our next move, because it was clear this had gone too far. It wasn't just emotional sabotage anymore. It was psychological warfare. And we needed help. I made a call to a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Devin. He worked in digital forensics now. Back in college. He used to help professors recover files and track down hackers. Now, he worked freelance for law firms, IT firms, and even law enforcement when needed. When I explained what was happening, he didn't hesitate. "I'll be there tonight," he said. "Don't talk to anyone else. Don't respond any more messages. And don't delete anything." That evening, Devin showed up with a backpack full of gear. Quiet, professional, no judgment in his eyes, only focus. He scanned our devices, our router, our laptops, our cloud accounts. What he found made my stomach turn. "You've been mirrored," he said. "What does that mean?" Dylan asked. "Means someone's been watching your activity. Screen recordings, folder syncing. It's not just your old drive links anymore. They've been inside your machine." "How?" Dylan's voice trembled. Could have been an old keylogger, or someone you gave access to years ago who still had remote permissions. If you ever clicked a fake Google login or open a suspicious PDF, it can happen. I swallowed. "Can we stop it?" Devin nodded. "I'm scrubbing your system now." But this wasn't just about data. It was about control. He wanted to make you feel like he was still inside your life, your skin. Dylan sat down, head in his hands. I sat beside him. "He doesn't win," I whispered. "Not this time." Devin looked at both of us. "You should report him." Dylan shook his head. "He'll twist it. He always does. He's smart, charming. People believe him." "Then we make them believe you," I said. Devin added, "You have enough to file a cyberstalking case. Maybe even harassment with intent to cause emotional distress. I'll help you draft it." That night, Dylan cried. Not the soft kind. The guttural, shaking kind that makes your ribs hurt. I held him. Not like a hero, just like someone who refused to let him fall again. And somewhere between those broken breaths, he whispered, "Why didn't I leave sooner?" I didn't answer, because I knew the answer didn't matter now. What mattered was what we were building after the fire. The next morning, Devin confirmed all malware and remote accesses were removed. New passwords, new accounts, clean slate. He left us with a flash drive full of logs, evidence, in case we ever needed to go to court. But before he left, he pulled me aside. "You really care about him, don't you?" "Yeah," I said without hesitation. "Then don't let this be the end of his story," he said. "Let it be the start." I returned to the apartment. Dylan was on the balcony, headphones in, hoodie up. He turned when I approached. There was pain in his eyes, but also strength. "I want to press charges," he said quietly. I nodded. "I'll be with you every step." He smiled, just a little, and for the first time in a long time, there was hope in his eyes. To be continued in Part 8. In the next part, Dylan confronts Matthew in person one final time, and what's revealed changes everything they thought they knew about the past. We didn't tell Matthew we were coming. That was intentional. He thrived on control, on anticipation, reaction, and psychological games. So we stripped him of that. No warnings. No polite heads up. Just Dylan and me, standing outside his downtown apartment as the sun started to dip behind the skyline. Dylan's hand trembled slightly when he reached for the buzzer. I squeezed it once gently and gave him a small nod. "You don't have to do this alone." "I'm not," he replied. He pressed a button. The door buzzed open. Matthew lived on the third floor. His building was modern, cold steel and neutral colors, the kind of place that felt expensive but empty. As we walked up, Dylan slowed his pace. "I'm scared," he said, just loud enough for me to hear. I stopped on the stair below him. "Being scared means you're not numb anymore. That's brave." He gave me the faintest smile, then kept walking. Matthew opened the door as if he were expecting company. He wore that same too smooth smile. Tight black t-shirt, perfectly messy hair, a glass of red, wine in one hand. "Wow," he said, leaning on the doorframe. "Didn't expect you to come to me. How dramatic." Dylan didn't respond. He stepped forward. I followed. We walked into the space. It was spotless, artificial, as if nothing ever happened here except curated illusions. Matthew closed the door and leaned against it. So he said, "What brings the lovebirds by?" Dylan didn't sit. He didn't even take off his hoodie. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket, the USB drive Devin gave us with all the logs. He tossed it onto Matthew's glass coffee table. "You've been watching me." Matthew looked at the drive, then sipped his wine. I was concerned. "You didn't look well last time I saw you. You've hacked into my files, sent photos, fake conversations. You've weaponized everything I ever gave you in trust." Matthew shrugged. "Emotion is currency, Dylan. You paid. I cashed in." That sentence, that one sentence, made something inside Dylan finally break loose. "No," Dylan said quietly. "Not this time." Matthew raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." "I'm pressing charges." Matthew blinked, laughed. "You're what?" "You heard me." Matthew set the wine down slowly. "Don't be stupid. You don't have a case." "We do. I cut in. You left fingerprints all over everything. Digital ones. IP traces. Metadata. Devin's file has it all." "And who's Devin?" "Someone way smarter than you," I said. Matthew scoffed. "So this is what we are now? Enemies?" "We were never anything," Dylan said. "You used me, and I let you. That stops now." Matthew took a slow breath. "You think you'll be safe after this? That I'll just disappear?" Dylan's jaw clenched. "No," he said, "but I'll know that I fought back, that I chose myself this time." Then Dylan said something I didn't expect. Something quiet, personal. "I used to believe that loving you was the most important thing I'd ever do." Matthew tilted his head. Dylan continued, "But it wasn't. Surviving you was." That silenced the room. For the first time since we entered, Matthew didn't have a comeback. We walked out without another word. Just the sound of Dylan's breath catching in the hallway, and my hand steady on his shoulder. Once outside, he exhaled deeply, like releasing poison. "I feel like I just buried something," he said. "You did," I told him, "and it doesn't get to rise again." The following week was full of paperwork, police reports, cybercrime affidavits, statements. Devin helped every step of the way. Dylan gave them everything, the messages, the photos, the drive. It wasn't easy. Each word in that statement pulled open an old wound. But he did it, not for revenge, for closure, for healing. A few days later, I woke up to find Dylan gone from bed. I panicked for a second, until I saw the light on in the living room. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, a small box in front of him. Photos, notes, journals, his entire history with Matthew. He looked up when I entered. "I'm letting it all go," he said. He stood, walked to the fireplace, and began feeding the pages in one by one. Flames danced. Smoke curled. Ashes drifted upward like silent prayers. That afternoon, we walked in the park. Quiet, hand in hand. No rush. We sat beneath a willow tree, letting the sun touch our faces. Dylan leaned against me. "I want to build something," he said suddenly. I turned. "What kind of something?" "A life, with someone who doesn't just survive my past, but walks with me into my future." I kissed his hair. "That's the only thing I want too." Later that night, we were brushing our teeth when Dylan looked at me in the mirror. "You know what today is?" "No." Exactly 1 year since I last spoke to Matthew, before all this. I looked at his reflection. Then let today be the anniversary of something new. He leaned in, pressed a soft kiss to my cheek, and whispered, "Thank you for finding me again." "You were never lost," I said. "You just needed someone to remind you how far you've come." But just when we thought the chapter was closed, an email came in. Subject line, "You think it's over?" No name, no text, just an attachment, a voice recording. And in the background, a familiar voice, one that wasn't Matthew's. To be continued in part 9. In the next part, the final piece of the puzzle drops, and a shocking betrayal from someone unexpected threatens everything Dylan and his best friend built. The email sat there, unread, unopened, heavy. Its subject line buzzed in my head like a siren. You think it's over? There was no sender name, just a string of random numbers. And the single attachment? A voice recording. No explanation. No message. Just a dare. Dylan stared at the screen. I don't recognize the address. We don't open it, I said instinctively. It's bait. Could be malware again. But something in Dylan's eyes said otherwise. He knew, not what was in the message, but who it was from. He clicked download, opened the file, and hit play. At first, there was nothing, just static. Then, faintly, a voice emerged, muffled, slurred slightly. It wasn't Matthew. It was... I tried to stop it. I didn't know he'd go that far. He told me he just wanted closure. Dylan gasped. He paused the audio. That's Ryan, he whispered. I froze. The same Ryan who swore he was done, who stormed out when we confronted him, now leaving cryptic audio messages through a burner account? Keep playing it, I said. Dylan's finger hovered. Then click. I told him you were already hurting, that you need more reminders. But he said pain is the only way people remember what love costs. There was a pause in the audio. Then Ryan's voice dropped lower. He said if you won't come back to him, he'd make you wish you had, that he had one more card to play. Another pause, then something that chilled me. It's not just about you, Dylan. He's coming after the one you're sleeping next to. Dylan closed the laptop. His hands were shaking again, but this time not from fear, from rage. He's coming after you now, he said. I nodded, silent, because I believed it. This wasn't about Dylan anymore. Matthew wasn't trying to win someone back. He was trying to destroy what replaced him. I need to know what this last card is, Dylan said. What he meant by that. He's bluffing. Maybe, but if he's not. We didn't sleep that night. Too many thoughts. Too many questions. What else could he do? He already leaked private photos. Already triggered Dylan's trauma. He even mirrored Dylan's system for weeks, maybe months. But now he was going after me? At 3:17 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. Check your past. Then a link to an old social media post, mine, from college. It was a photo I barely remembered. A group picture from some pride event. I was in the background, holding a guy's hand. Nathan, my ex. And the caption under the photo? Completely changed. Originally, it was something innocent like Pride Vibes, Summer Heat, Friends for Life. Now it read, he used me, left me, warned the next one too late. And underneath it, a dozen comments have been added, none of them from real people. All bots, all saying things like, he manipulates, he's a user, check his record. Another victim incoming. Dylan read them all. What the hell is this? I was already typing, trying to find the source. The account looked like mine. My name, my profile pic, but the bio was slightly off, and the handle had an extra underscore, a fake account, designed to look like me, to ruin me. He cloned your profile, Dylan said, just like he mirrored mine. I nodded. I can get it taken down. But this isn't about identity theft anymore. This is character assassination. And he's good at it. The next morning, I met with Devin again. I showed him everything. The burner email, the voice recording, the fake profile. Devin's jaw tightened. He's escalating, he said. And not just digitally. He's getting reckless. Which makes him sloppy, I replied. Devin looked at me. Maybe, or maybe it means he's out of time. We didn't know what that meant yet, but we were about to find out, because that afternoon, Dylan got a call from a block number. He didn't answer it, but it left a voicemail. And this one wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. One last time, face to face. I'll tell you the truth. All of it. You and him come together. Or don't come at all. The message gave a location. A cafe on the outskirts of town. Quiet, remote, a place we used to study during college. It was specific, personal. Dylan looked at me. Do we go? It was a trap. Of course it was. But we were tired of running, of hiding. So we decided to walk straight into it. With backup. Devin came with us. He wouldn't go inside, but he'd be parked nearby, mic'd up, recording everything. He also contacted a detective he worked with just in case. The cafe was nearly empty. A woman at the counter, a barista with wireless earbuds, one guy on a laptop in the corner, and at a back table, Matthew, smiling. He stood when we approached, arms wide like we were old friends meeting for brunch. Dylan and the bodyguard. How cute. We sat, didn't return the smile. You wanted to talk, Dylan said. So talk. Matthew leaned in. His tone dropped. You've made quite a mess. No, I said. You did. He ignored me. You went and got yourself a savior. Someone pure, untouched. Someone who made you feel new again. Dylan didn't flinch. I am new, and I didn't need saving. Just honesty. Matthew smirked. That's the thing, isn't it? Truth. It's all about perspective. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a flash drive. Here, he said, place it on the table. The final piece. You want the full story? It's on there. Dylan hesitated. Why now? Matthew sipped his coffee. Because you'll never forget me, no matter how far you run. Dylan stood. I don't need this. He left the drive on the table. I followed him out. We didn't speak until we got to the car. Devin leaned over from the driver's seat. Did he confess? Not directly, I said, but we got it on tape. Dylan sat back, exhaling hard. Let him keep his games. I'm done playing. That night, we didn't check the drive. We didn't need more darkness. Instead, we opened wine, laughed, watched a stupid movie we'd both seen 100 times. And then, just before bed, Dylan turned to me and whispered. He didn't win. I nodded. No, he never did. But in the morning, I woke up to police lights outside the apartment, and an officer at our door, hat in hand, expression grim. Are you Dylan Carter? He asked. Yes, Dylan said slowly. The officer glanced at his notes. There's been a development. Dylan's hand gripped mine, and I knew whatever came next would change everything. To be continued in part 10. In the next part, the flash drive reveals a shocking confession, and a sudden twist brings justice, at a cost no one saw coming. The officer didn't enter. He just stood in the doorway, his gaze serious, like he already regretted having to speak the words forming behind his lips. Dylan Carter? He asked again, a little softer now. Dylan stepped forward, holding my hand tightly. Yes. I'm Officer Nelson with Seattle PD. I need you to come with me downtown. It's regarding a person of interest tied to your recent complaint. Matthew Blake. My spine tensed. Is he here? Is he threatening Dylan again? I asked, stepping protectively in front. The officer shook his head. No, he's dead. The words hung there, just like that. Cold, flat, sudden. Dylan blinked. What? He was found early this morning at his apartment. Apparent overdose. But given the open investigation tied to you in the cyberstalking report, protocol requires your statement, especially after we found this. He held up a small evidence bag. Inside, the same flash drive Matthew left us. Untouched, unopened, the same drive Dylan had refused to even take from that cafe table. How did he? Dylan started, then stopped. His voice cracked. We were tipped off by an anonymous call. Officer Nelson continued. The voicemail at dispatch simply said, Matthew Blake, apartment 307, flash drive on desk. You want to listen? That's it. Dylan's knees buckled slightly. I steadied him. Do we have to go now? I asked. Nelson gave a sympathetic nod. We'll make it quick. It's just formal. We're not treating you as suspects. We just need to complete the chain of information. We rode in silence. Dylan didn't speak a single word the entire ride. He just stared out the window, knuckles white from gripping my hand. I kept squeezing it back, steady. He needed to know I wasn't going anywhere. Not now. Not ever. At the station, the process was simple. Statements. Timeline clarification. Written confirmation that we'd last seen Matthew the day before. They didn't push for emotion. Didn't ask if we felt guilty. They just followed protocol. But when Officer Nelson returned the room holding a laptop, something shifted. "There's something you should hear," he said. "We managed to crack the flash drive. It contains one audio file, one video." He set the laptop on the table, paused. "Do you want to hear it?" Dylan looked at me, then back at Nelson. "Yes," he said. "The audio file came first. It was Matthew, his voice tired, slow, measured. If you're hearing this, I guess I finally burned everything down, didn't I? I always thought pain was power, that if someone feared losing you, they'd fight harder to keep you. But somewhere along the way, I started mistaking fear for love. And Dylan, I know you'll never forgive me. You shouldn't. I kept those files to hurt you. I sent that photo because I wanted you to be afraid of me again, because fear meant I still had space in your heart. But I was wrong." There was a pause. Then his voice trembled. "You loved me, and I broke that, over and over. And when someone else came along, someone who actually made you feel safe, I didn't know how to handle that. So I tried to ruin it. And now, I think I've ruined myself instead." The video began immediately after. A dim-lit shot of Matthew's apartment. Him, sitting cross-legged on the floor, wine bottle beside him, eyes red. He looked smaller than we remembered. Broken. Hollow. "There's one thing I never told you, Dylan. Something you deserved to know a long time ago. Ryan didn't just leak your photos. He didn't just spy. He helped me set the whole thing up from the beginning. The fake texts, the account cloning, the photo metadata. All of it. He said he missed being in the inner circle, that he wanted to shake things up. I didn't think he'd actually go as far as he did. When I asked him to stop, he didn't. Even after you confronted him, I think he started doing things without telling me. This mess, it stopped being mine. I couldn't control it anymore." Matthew looked directly into the camera. "Dylan, I never deserve your love. But I hope, wherever you end up, it's a place where no one ever uses your past against you again." The video ended. We sat in silence. Even the officer didn't say anything for a while. When he finally spoke, it was quiet. We verified some of what he said. Ryan Miller's activity logs match portions of the hacks traced through your old drive and social platforms. We'll be bringing him in for questioning today. Dylan looked hollow, but calm, like a storm had passed and taken all the noise with it. "Can we go?" he asked. Officer Nelson nodded. "You're free to go. And I'm sorry you had to carry all this." Back home, the sun was already setting. Orange light painted the living room in warm strokes. Dylan didn't speak for a while, just stood in front of the window, breathing. Then finally he said it. He wasn't a monster. I turned to him. He did monstrous things, but he wasn't born that way. I walked to him, rested a hand on his back. He was broken, and instead of healing, he hurt others. Dylan nodded. "I wanted him to suffer," he admitted, "for what he did. But now that he's gone, all I feel is tired. Justice doesn't always feel like revenge," I said. "Sometimes it just feels like silence." We sat on the couch. No TV, no music, just us. Dylan rested his head on my shoulder. "I'm scared it'll always be like this," he whispered. "Like what?" "Like I'll never get out from under him. That every good thing in my life will always have a shadow on it." I turned his face gently toward mine. "That's not true," I said. "You get to choose who you are now, and who you become. He doesn't own even a single second of your future." Tears filled his eyes, and for the first time, he let them fall without hiding. That night, we burned the last photo, the one that started it all. We didn't do it as an act of defiance. We did it as closure, as peace, as the final word in a chapter that had tried so hard to rewrite itself. The next morning, Dylan woke up smiling, not wide, not dramatic, just soft, genuine. "I want to go back to school," he said. For what? Counseling. Trauma work. I think I want to help people like me. People who survive. I smiled. I think you already have. To be continued in part 11, final part. In the last part, Dylan steps fully into his new life, and a final surprise changes the way he sees love forever. Spring arrived late that year. The city thawed slower than usual, like even the weather was holding its breath, waiting for summer to end before allowing things to bloom. But for Dylan, this spring felt like the first one, not because the air was warmer, but because he was. 3 months had passed since Matthew's final message. 2 since Ryan was formally charged with cyber harassment. 1 since Dylan applied to the trauma counseling program at the University of Washington. Life hadn't gotten easier, but it had gotten clearer. Some things still haunted us. He still had nights where I'd wake to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, quietly staring out the window like he was waiting for a ghost to knock. Sometimes he still flinched when someone knocked on the front door too loudly, but he always came back to bed, always took my hand, without me having to offer it. That mattered. On the first day of his volunteer internship at a local crisis center, I walked him to the door. "You sure you're ready?" I asked. He smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. "No, but I'm not afraid of being unready anymore." He kissed me, slow and soft. "I love you." I froze. He had never said it out loud before, and in that moment, every flashback, every tear, every broken piece of him that I had watched heal, aligned. "I love you too," I said. He stepped through those glass doors and didn't look back, because he didn't need to anymore. A few weeks later, Dylan planned something on his own. I didn't know what to expect, just that he told me to wear something nice, but not suit and tie desperate. I followed instructions. Nervously, he drove out of the city, along winding roads with tall trees on either side, golden evening sun pouring through the branches. "Where are we going?" I asked. He just smiled. "You'll see." When we arrived, I recognized it instantly. A quiet lake. Still, silver. We'd passed it once on a drive months ago. He'd told me back then that it felt peaceful, like a place you'd go to start over. Now, he laid out a picnic blanket on its shore, brought out homemade sandwiches, and a bottle of sparkling cider. We sat there, talked, laughed. He was the most alive I had ever seen him. Halfway through the meal, he reached into his bag and pulled something out. Not a ring, not keys, not anything expected. It was a small, leather-bound journal. He handed it to me. "What's this?" "Something I started writing before you ever walked back into my life." Inside were entries, letters, almost, all written to someone. At first, I thought they were to Matthew, but they weren't. They were to me, long before we ever kissed, long before we even admitted what we were. There's this boy. He looks at me like I haven't been ruined. He laughs like he's not afraid to hear my story. He makes me feel like my scars are maps, not warnings. I couldn't breathe for a moment. "You wrote these about me?" He nodded. "I didn't know it was you then. Not fully. I just knew that when you walked into the room, the noise in my head got a little quieter." I looked at him. Really looked. His hair a little longer now. Freckles more pronounced under the sun. The faintest dimple at the corner of his mouth when he smiled like this. And I thought, this is how peace looks on a person. Not loud. Just whole. "I was broken when we met," he said quietly. "But you never asked me to be fixed. You just sat with me while I remember how to breathe." I reached out and held his face in my hands. "You were never broken," I whispered. "Just buried. I just helped you dig." The sun dipped below the trees, casting a warm orange glow over the lake. Dylan leaned into my shoulder, and for the first time in years, he said something he never thought he would. "I forgive him." I looked at him. "You do?" "I don't forgive what he did," Dylan clarified, "but I forgive the part of me that stayed, that kept hoping he'd change. I needed to release that more than I needed revenge." The next few months went by gently. His internship turned into a part-time job. He met survivors who reminded him of himself, and he helped them the way he'd once needed to be helped. We moved into a new apartment. brighter, smaller, ours. No ghosts, just plants we forgot to water, and a couch that squeaked when we kissed too hard. One morning, as I poured coffee, Dylan came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, whispered, "I had a dream. Yeah, you and me, in 10 years, still doing this, still spilling coffee and missing alarm clocks?" He laughed. "No, still waking up next to each other, still choosing each other. The truth is, love didn't come in fireworks with us. It came in healing, in making it through the hard nights, in choosing truth when lies were easier, in showing up every single day. I never walked in on my best friend again, because after everything, he wasn't just my best friend anymore. He was my heart, my home, my beginning. And for the first time in our lives, the past didn't own us. We did